Welcome to the Sharp End Podcast YouTube channel. I'm Ashley, the creator and hostess of the show. This podcast aims at minimizing future outdoor accidents by way of storytelling. Real people sharing real stories.
Well, hello again, and welcome to the Sharp End Podcast. And I'm really excited that you're here because, like I was just saying, I am also a member of the American Alpine Club, and I also don't know how to use the rescue benefits. And this, like I was saying, this idea is spurred from my conversation that I had with my September 1st guest on the show, Miriam. She is also a member of the club and had an incident and didn't know how to activate her rescue benefits. So I'm super excited that you're on the show today to talk about the rescue benefits and how to engage them and what comes next. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners if you don't mind.
Sure thing. Thanks for having me, Ashley. So my name is Leigh Preston. I'm the membership director at the American Alpine Club. I've been working there for about 2 years. And just to normalize me, I'm very much like a 5 fun climber. I don't really climb that hard like some of my coworkers. And my personal hobbies are more so like trail running, skiing, and biking. So just want to also cover how those activities can be covered under your AAC rescue benefit.
Great. That's great. I had no idea that was also included. So that's
Great.
great to know. Okay. So yeah, go ahead and start. Like what are the rescue benefits and how do you engage them? Let's start there.
Sure. So American Alpine Club has 4 levels of membership. And as of 2.5 years ago, we started partnering with Redpoint Travel Protection. They're one of the really big companies in this space of travel insurance and rescue coverage. And they worked with us to develop a 4-tier membership model that's really meant to meet the needs of our average member and what they find themselves up to based on member data that we have. And so the most normal, I call it our meat and potatoes membership, is called the partner level. It's probably what most people have that you've talked to. It's usually $100. We do offer military and student and family discounts.
$100 a year?
A year, yeah, for 12 full months of coverage. It goes into effect as soon as you make that transaction. There's no delay period. I have heard from folks who wait until the very last second before they're traveling or getting on the flight, and they're like, if I purchase it right now, am I okay? So yes, you are. Wouldn't recommend that, but yes, you are. And then there's a level above that called the leader level, which is $250 a year. So those are the 2 most common levels of membership that I steer folks towards who are looking for that rescue and medical coverage. The partner level, which again is that $100 level, comes with $7,500 in rescue coverage and $5,000 in emergency medical expense coverage. So it's basically 2 different pools of money to think about. I'll start with that rescue coverage first, because that's the most frequently asked about. So that's intended to cover the cost of transportation from the site of a medical emergency while you're away from home to a relevant medical facility. So what that means, more nitty gritty, is like a helicopter or an ambulance getting you from a trailhead, or if an actual rescue team is plucking you off the side of a mountain and bringing you to a hospital or to urgent care, that transportation cost is covered.
For how much money again?
That's $7,500 at that partner level. So we designed that amount of money and that level with Redpoint kind of based off of our average member who's kind of recreating close to home. I live in Denver. Most of the recreation we do is within 30 minutes of home. And so a hypothetical rescue would not really cost me that much because I'm really close to a metro area. And so that's that partner level membership. The next level up is leader. Same coverage, but it is $300,000 in rescue instead of $7,500. So huge jump.
Big difference.
Yes. And for only $250 a year, you get that $300,000 in coverage. So we recommend that for folks who are traveling to more extreme backcountry scenarios. So I hear from a lot of folks who are going to Nepal, Himalaya, or Patagonia, places like that. I would definitely steer you towards that level of coverage because rescues there can definitely run pretty exorbitant. And then that medical expense coverage, so separate pool of money from the rescue. It's $5,000 at any level. And what that means is regardless of whether or not a rescue took place, maybe you're with a buddy and they're able to drive you to the hospital. You don't have to go through the rigmarole of actually requesting a rescue. But once you're there, you have some out-of-pocket expenses, maybe an x-ray, or they're putting a cast on you, or various scans that you get from an ER visit. And those can be as we know in the US, pretty expensive. So regardless of your deductible, your current health insurance status, any out-of-pocket expenses that are going towards emergency stabilization as a result of a qualifying incident are covered up to $5,000. So that's you requesting reimbursement from Redpoint. And that's, I think, the lesser known part of this coverage, because we mostly refer to it as rescue coverage, medical coverage is how we mostly advertise it. But I think the medical is sneakily the way better aspect of this, because more likely than not, most of us are going to find ourselves needing medical expense coverage rather than a rescue, like knock on wood. But most of us have gone to urgent care or the hospital as a result of a climbing, biking, skiing, what have you, accident. So I definitely want to make folks aware of that. In terms of how this benefit works, it works best if you're able to contact Redpoint Travel Protection directly. So they have one emergency phone number for our members. It's on our website. It's in our emails to members. It's in our print communication to members. And that phone number is good to use anywhere in the world. Basically serves as like a hotline to Redpoint. And they would be the ones then coordinating a rescue on your behalf.
That only works if you have cell phone service.
Yeah, for the most part, it works if you have cell phone service. They do also partner with Garmin devices. So I personally have a Garmin InReach. I have Redpoint programmed as an emergency contact in my Garmin device, and I have a preset message to them.
Right there.
That's a good one to know about. I know a lot of our members have InReaches specifically, and I hear a lot of people you interview talking about InReaches. So I know it's very abundant in the market out there. We have instructions.
Well, and also too, I had an interview, or I had a guest on my show a few months ago who has an InReach. You activated it.
Yeah.
And then he didn't realize that he had, like, who he had typed in when he set up his InReach device. He didn't realize or remember who he had added as his emergency contacts.
Yeah.
And one of those people was his mom.
Oh my gosh.
So she got this like ping, your son's in trouble. And
oh my
she's
gosh.
like, oh my gosh, my son's in trouble, and then, so that he actually went back and changed who he has in his, as his emergency contacts, because he didn't want to scare his mother.
Yeah.
Right. But having, Redpoint in there as one of the two options is something to look into if you have this coverage.
Yeah. And there's instructions on our website that are from Redpoint directly on how to specifically add them into a Garmin, because it's like a little convoluted if you've done it. You have to use their browser. And there is a preset message to say, hey, my name is Leigh. I'm an AAC member at this level. Here's my member ID. I'm in need of a rescue. So I highly recommend folks with InReaches who are active AAC members find those instructions before you travel and program that into your device. Because,
and I'll put those in the show notes too.
Yeah.
I'll put that link into the show notes so people can just be like, click,
Great.
Boom, it's right there.
Amazing. Thank you. So yeah, ideal scenario, you're able to contact Redpoint via your InReach, via a cell phone, via a sat phone, something like that, and have them coordinate the rescue on your behalf. It's kind of the same as
I'm just going to say the number too really quick. For everybody listening right now, I'll talk really slowly. Get out your pen. Is your pen out or is your phone out? Maybe you just want to get your phone out. I'm still talking slow, so you have time to grab your phone or a pen. Okay, great. Redpoint Travel Protection. Their number is 1-628-251-1510. Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Leigh.
Appreciate that. So yes, if you're able to contact Redpoint to initiate that rescue, that's the best case scenario for you. It's kind of like pressing the SOS button on your Garmin. It's the same deal where you're kind of reaching like a hotline that's then going to determine where you are and then contact the relevant authorities in your area, be it a search and rescue team, sheriff's department, something in between. And if you are able to contact them, that means they are covering costs up front for you. And then if your rescue costs exceed what your AAC coverage has you at, then you're left to foot the remainder of that bill. If for whatever reason you aren't able to contact Redpoint, which is common, so maybe folks don't have that number programmed, they don't have cell service, maybe the AAC member is unconscious and the people with them don't know that they're an AAC member, and to make that call, there's a number of things that could happen, and Redpoint is understanding of that. Our contract with them understands that and has some leniency baked into it. So as long as you're able to contact Redpoint as soon as possible after the incident occurs, loop them into the fact that an AAC member had a medical evacuation. Like as soon as you can loop them into that conversation, the better for you. And then you're going to request reimbursement if you were left with charges from a helicopter or an ambulance. The one downside to that is that you're left to foot the bill yourself first. So if you are in an area like the Himalaya where those rescues can maybe be tens of thousands of dollars, that's something to be aware of before you're traveling, is that you might be expected to foot that bill. And also they might not cover you up to the full extent of your membership.
If you call after.
Correct. So basically, if they weren't the ones coordinating that rescue, they will kind of reimburse you to the cost that they think they could have coordinated that rescue for, if that makes sense. So typically it might run like a slightly less of a reimbursement than if you had contacted them directly. But either way, they'll do their best and reimburse you as much as they can. And then medical expense coverage, those bills are always received kind of months later, at least in the US. So that will always be kind of a much delayed process. Maybe months later, you'll reach out to Redpoint, fill out a claim request, submit your paperwork from that doctor's visit or ER visit. They'll start a claim with you and they'll give you that reimbursement.
Up to $5,000 across the board, no matter what tier you're at, no matter any of the 4 tiers, it's $5,000.
Yeah, partner level and up, $5,000. Our supporter level membership doesn't have any of this coverage, just to flag that. And it's technically $10,000 in a calendar year. So God forbid you have 2 different qualifying incidents, which I really hope doesn't happen. But if it does, you do separately have like 2 different pools of $5,000 to tap into if you have a really unlucky year. Common terms and exclusions of this benefit and misunderstandings about it. So first of all, it works just about anywhere in the world, which is a big misunderstanding. The only geographic exclusions are above the Arctic Circle north and below the 60th parallel south. So that basically means Antarctica as an entire continent is not covered. And then because of the way the Arctic Circle is, if you looked at a map recently, it does include parts of Alaska. It includes parts of Canada and Greenland. So that is something to be aware of if you're somebody who lives in Alaska and recreates there, or if you're traveling to Greenland.
I
do. Exactly.
I'll be looking
at
that
map.
line.
Yeah. Inherently, you're not going to be covered in those areas, but you can purchase an upgrade for a specific trip. If you are going to be, doing a big backcountry ski expedition up there, you can purchase an upgrade through Redpoint directly, and I can talk about that a little bit later.
Where can I find that line, that map?
We don't have like a literal map, but the verbiage from Redpoint says Arctic Circle parallel north as the defining northern reaches. Yeah. So that's the only geographic limitation. There is no altitude restriction that you might see with plenty of other rescue and travel insurance packages. So yes, your highest altitudes are still covered. But again, be aware that a rescue at a high altitude, as you are probably aware, is very expensive. And then the only activity restrictions are things related to flying, jumping, or being in an aircraft. So it's kind of those like very high risk activities that you usually see separated when you're looking at like AD&D policies or other insurance policies. So that would be like skydiving, base jumping, flying a plane, anything in between. Those are not covered. But that means basically anything else under the sun that you could find yourself doing and that most AAC members are doing is covered. So like I said, I'm a trail runner, a skier, both inbounds and out of bounds, hiking, biking, rock climbing, multi-pitch, sport, bouldering, really like most things you'd find yourself doing are covered as long as you're not at home. In terms of upgrades through Redpoint, like I said, so if you are going in a polar region or if you are seeking more coverage beyond just traditional rescue and medical, so maybe you also want your trip insured if you're working through a guide service, or you are concerned about trip cancellation or baggage loss, things like that that are not covered under your AAC membership. You can purchase an upgrade through Redpoint's product called a Ripcord. AAC members get a 10% discount on any Ripcord policies they purchase. From what I've seen, they're fairly inexpensive. It just covers the duration of your trip. And if you are fairly young and your trip is fairly short, then the costs are pretty low for you. And I definitely highly recommend checking that out if you are someone that's going on like a bigger expedition and there's risk of other things beyond medical emergencies taking place. Another common concern is how to kind of notify the people around you that you're an active AAC member, notify your guide service. How does Redpoint know I'm a member? Redpoint actively has access to our database like 24/7. And that's not all of your personal information. It's just your names and your emails. And so that's how they verify membership status. So if they do receive a claim request or a call from a member, that's how they quickly verify just your first and last name, and they'll check your email in our system, and they'll see what membership level you are and therefore what type of coverage you have.
Okay, here there's some questions on the AAC website. We talked about how to initiate a rescue already. We've talked about what activities and where the rescue benefits work. What is my policy number? So if you
Mm-hmm.
have a membership, if you have benefits, how does one find their policy
Yes, thank
number?
you. You don't technically have a policy number because you are not the holder of that coverage. We, as the American Alpine Club, have a contract with Redpoint kind of on your behalf and on behalf of all of our members. And so nobody has a specific policy number. Like I said, it's just your name and your email is how you're verified with Redpoint's database. If you need to prove to a guide service, I often hear folks when they're traveling with the guide service, they ask for proof that you have medical evacuation coverage. You can print out at any time from your member profile. It's like a login-based portal for our members. You can go in there and access a proof of membership letter. So it'll say your name, your member ID, your contact information, mailing address, membership level, membership expiration date, and what amount of coverage for what types of things you have. It's on our letterhead. It looks very official. You can print that out or email it to your guide service. And from what I've heard, that has been sufficient proof of your coverage without like an ID number, policy number.
Great. That's great. That's handy that you guys have that accessible for us to just go in and log in and print and laminate or
definitely
whatever.
Bring that with you if you're traveling. You can also print out like a smaller version. It looks like a member ID card. I know folks like have that in their wallet. Yeah, so it has your emergency number for Redpoint and your contact information.
Okay, great. So I posted on Instagram a couple of days ago if anybody had if any of my listeners had any questions for you when we did this interview, and there were some folks that wrote in. So if I just want to run through their questions and have you answer them if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm.
So Nobleman at T Nobleman asks, what is the percentage likelihood that Redpoint will pay our claims that are not initiated through them? Which I think you kind of answered already.
Yeah,
right?
I wouldn't say I'd know a percent likelihood. That'd be really cool if I knew that. I don't see statistics on denied claims. I do hear from folks if they had any questions about their Redpoint claim process, but mostly I don't hear from members while they're doing this. It's between them and Redpoint. But from what I've heard, Redpoint is very flexible and very understanding. And as long as you have all of your relevant paperwork and a legitimate reason for them not being contacted, besides just, I didn't want to contact you, then by all means, you should still be covered. So as long as it's a qualifying incident and you have a legitimate reason for them not being contacted, you should be all set.
Okay, great. Okay, so at Taylor907, hi Taylor, he's my homie. Taylor wants to know, does the insurance cover the emergency room visit that you get evacuated to?
Yes. So again, that's that $5,000 medical expense coverage. You might not receive your bill for a few months. You might just pay, like $1,000 to $2,000, depending on your health insurance deductible. But anything that's out of pocket from you to that hospital could get covered as long as it's related to emergency stabilization. So that will exclude things like rehab or like treatment down the line or things that are not emergencies. Like I just had a chronic knee pain that's been building up over time. And like, now I'm going to take myself to the doctor. Yeah, that does not count. It has to be like distinct incident. I fell, I broke my ankle, I need help. And that out of pocket expense would get covered.
Okay. At Rowan Mountain, he's also a friend of mine when I lived in Sitka. That's cool. Hi, Rowan. Rowan wants to know how many people successfully utilize rescue benefits annually. I worry about denied benefits.
For sure. It's a great question. This is data that we pretty recently got access to. So we know that in the last 12 months, we've had 15 AAC members successfully medically evacuated courtesy of Redpoint. So it's about one a month. And then we've also seen a couple dozen medical claims be covered in the last 12 months as well. I would expect that number to be higher given the number of members that we have and how active they are. So that tells me that a lot of folks like you maybe just don't know that much about it. And so we're just like, yeah, whatever. And then maybe don't make that call and just don't know about it till like much later that they could have gotten reimbursed or could have gotten that assisted. So I think that number could be higher based on how active our members are and what I hear from folks. But that's what we know. I mostly don't hear from folks who are filing claims successfully because that happens between them and Redpoint. So I only hear from our members when they are confused or they have a concern about a denied claim, but that's pretty infrequently. And I'm very, very happy when folks do reach out to tell me that they use it successfully, but they usually just don't tell me. So yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice to have some success.
Yeah,
some success
unfortunately,
stories.
most folks don't really want to talk about as you know, they don't really want to go out of their way to tell me about what happened unless it was bad. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, hopefully that answered his question. Okay, question number 4 from @Walker Pruitt. What costs are the benefits most often used to paid for? i.e., how do people actually use the benefits?
Yeah, it's predominantly that medical expense coverage. Most of the success stories that I've heard from members, and my partner actually used it himself, is that emergency room visit. Those are just commonly very expensive here. Usually it's immediately getting your deductible. It's like a $2,000 visit. And as long as it's related to an emergency incident, it can be fully covered within a few weeks. So that's most often what our members might find themselves amidst, which is like a mountain biking accident, or I broke my knee skiing, or I took a really bad whipper and I broke my ankle. A friend takes you to the hospital. You don't have to go through that hassle of a helicopter, but you are left footing an emergency room bill. So please take advantage of the coverage you have access to for just $100 a year.
Right. Okay, let's see. Four-door Shack. He asks, is there a special number to call when you get in trouble to order the use of benefits? And we already went through that number.
Yes.
And I will post it in the show notes, and or you can find it on the American Alpine Club's website /benefits,
Rescue.
I think. No, /rescue.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And we'll put that in the show notes too. Last question that I have here is from @CasaGrassa. That's a cool handle. If you're with a friend who doesn't have benefits and you do, and they need a rescue, can you transfer your benefits to them?
Great question. No. First off, to answer that is a hard no. You have to be covered yourself. Membership only covers the purchaser, which is you. So I highly recommend talking to your friends, your belay partners, your adventure buddies before you go out on your next trip, and talk through what sorts of coverage everybody in the group has. Talk them into an AAC membership. It's really inexpensive. Please get your friends covered. You would not want to be caught in a scenario where you are the one covered, but your friend is the one who has the medical emergency, and that is just totally useless. We do offer family memberships. So if you're out there recreating with your kiddos or your spouse, we offer a family discount under that partner level membership. We offer a student discount. It's only $65 a year for partner level coverage for students. That's college or high school. So I highly recommend making sure that your friends, your buddies are all covered. And if they're not covered, just make sure they know that you want them to call Redpoint in the event of a medical emergency. Because you never know what's going to happen when that rescue starts taking place or an emergency takes place. Maybe you're unconscious. Make sure your friends and your buddies are equipped to help you out with your AAC membership.
What about domestic partnerships?
Yeah, great question. So we don't technically require proof of like spousal status or anything like that. We basically just say adults and dependents. The only difference with a family membership is you just all share one mailing address inherently, and we only send you one issue or one set of issues of our annual publications to that one mailing address. But otherwise, your marital status or non-marital status doesn't matter. Dependents, I will leave to you to define whether or not your child is a dependent or not. We don't require a certain age limit. Again, we have that student membership option as well. Mm-hmm. So if they're in high school or college or grad school, $65 a year for a student level membership. So pretty flexible in our family memberships. Highly recommend looking into those if you are recreating with your kiddos or with your partner.
Well, those are all the questions that my listeners had. I can't think of any other questions that I have. What about you? Do you have anything you want to add?
I don't think so. I'll just like make one final plug that, again, you don't have to be climbing. That is obviously like we mostly talk to climbers. We mostly work with climbers. We're mostly promoting climbing, but you don't technically have to be rock climbing to use this benefit. So don't feel like you have to purchase this just for your one trip overseas to go rock climbing and then you're going to cancel it immediately after. Like this works for you year round during the most like mundane adventures. You never know when something, a medical emergency might crop up, as you're aware. So it could be those really mundane adventures close to home, just mountain biking our usual loop, and you never know. So please consider purchasing an American Alpine Club membership. It supports the work we do. It covers you. It covers your family. Keep yourself safe out there and also educate yourself on the types of accidents that take place, how to avoid those, and how to use this benefit efficiently as possible if you are in the if you do find yourself in the event of an emergency.
Well, great. Thank you so much for sharing all that information with me and the listeners. I really do hope that some folks call and get the benefits and use them if they, well, hopefully they don't need them,
Right.
but
Yes.
if they do, I hope they use them.
I agree.
And I hope that if they do, they call you and say, "Hey, Leigh, guess what? I had this success story. I have this success story for you."
Yeah.
And then maybe that can go into the American Alpine Club book or whatever, or online, or
Yeah.
just promoting that too. I think that's great.
Yeah, I'll send you some free stuff. If you have a testimonial for me, please let me know. I would love to hear it. It makes my day. We'll put it up on the website. I'll send you some sweet free things. Please reach out to me.
Perfect. Cool. And what's your email address?
My email address is lpreston, that's LPRESTON at AmericanAlpineClub.org. And I also answer our office phone. So if you want to give us a call, it's 303-384-0110. And we'd be happy to talk to you.